My son called. His wife just had a baby girl, my granddaughter. I was overseas for work. Told him I'd be there as soon as I could. When I finally walked into their house, there was no baby. Where is she? My son wouldn't look at me. We gave her up for adoption. I stared at him. What are you talking about? She's deaf. We can't raise a damaged child. They'd thrown away their 5-day-old daughter because she couldn't hear. I begged them to tell me where she was. Which agency? I'd take her myself. The records are sealed. You have no rights. They'd made sure I could never find her. My granddaughter was out there alone, rejected for being deaf, so I decided I was going to learn her language, so that when I found her, the first thing she'd see was someone who'd spent years preparing to understand her, to tell her she was wanted, that she always had been. My son thought the story ended that day. It was only the beginning. My name is Nancy, and this is my story. Before we continue, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, and subscribe to Never Too Old channel. We're creating a community of people who know that our best chapters can happen at any age. Now, back to the story. The phone rang while I was reviewing my keynote slides in the Hotel Business Center, Berlin, 3 days before I was scheduled to speak at the European Property Management Conference. Mom, it's happening. Vanessa's in labor. Christopher's voice came through excited and breathless. I closed my laptop. Right now? We're at the hospital. They're saying a few more hours. You have a granddaughter coming, Mom. My chest tightened in a way I hadn't felt since my husband died. A granddaughter. I'm getting on a plane. Don't you have that conference thing? Christopher, you're having a baby. I know, but you're the keynote speaker, right? That's a big deal. Come after. She'll still be here. I looked at my presentation on the screen. 200 people registered, contracts signed. The organizers had been planning this for months. I'll be there as soon as I can. 4 days at most. Tell Vanessa I'm coming. She'll be glad. Love you, Mom. He hung up. I sat there staring at the phone. A granddaughter. Christopher and Vanessa lived in Greenwich, Connecticut, in a house her parents had given them. Old money. Old families. I'd been living in London managing my late husband's properties, visiting Connecticut maybe once a year. This baby would change that. I'd be present. I'd be the kind of grandmother who showed up. I gave my keynote 3 days later, flew out of Berlin that afternoon, landed at JFK the next morning, and drove straight up I-95 in a rental car. I'd stopped in Westport at a boutique and bought a silver rattle, a cashmere blanket, and a stuffed lamb. Too much, probably. I didn't care. Their house sat on Round Hill Road behind old maples and perfect hedges. White colonial, black shutters. I pulled into the circular drive just past noon, grabbed my gifts and walked to the door. Christopher answered before I could knock. He looked terrible, exhausted in a way that seemed wrong for a new father. Mom, let me see her. Where is she? He stepped back but didn't move aside. Come in. We need to talk first. The words hit wrong. Vanessa appeared behind him wearing white linen and a silk blouse. No baby in her arms. No spit up on her shoulder. No exhaustion in her face. Hello, Nancy. They walked me to the formal living room, the one with the antique settee and Vanessa's grandmother's portrait on the wall. Not the family room with soft furniture where you'd hold an infant. I stayed standing. Where's the baby? Christopher sat down. Vanessa sat beside him, hands folded. Sit down, Mom. I don't want to sit. I want to meet my granddaughter. He looked at his hands. Vanessa looked at me. Below, we placed her for adoption, she said. The room went quiet. I heard those words, but they wouldn't arrange themselves into sense. What are you talking about? The baby, Christopher said. We gave her up. It's already done. I set the gift bag on the floor. The house was too still. No crying, no bassinet, no baby sounds anywhere. You called me 4 days ago from the hospital. I know. You told me you were having a daughter. We did have a daughter. Vanessa's voice came out flat. And we made the best decision for our family. Where is she? Christopher finally looked up. She's with an agency. They'll place her when they find the right family. I'm the right family. Tell me which agency and I'll go get her right now. Vanessa shook her head. It's a closed adoption. We don't have to disclose that information. How old is she? She was born 5 days ago, Christopher said quietly. My granddaughter had been alive for 5 days, and they'd already given her away, while I was crossing an ocean to meet her. Why? Vanessa straightened. She's deaf. The hospital did a hearing screening before discharge. She failed it. They tested again, confirmed it. I stared at her. She's deaf. Yes. And you gave her away because she's deaf. We're not equipped to handle a damaged child, Nancy. Be realistic. The specialists, the therapy, the time. My family wouldn't accept a defective grandchild in the family line. The word defective hung in the air between us. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against my thighs. Tell me where she is. Which agency? I'll adopt her myself. You can't. Christopher stood up. We already checked with lawyers. Grandparents don't have legal standing in adoption cases. The courts protect parental decisions. The records are sealed. They'd checked. They'd researched it. They'd made sure I couldn't stop them. If you could throw away your own child, I said, then you're not the son I raised. Christopher's face hardened. Then maybe you don't know me at all. You live in London. You visit once a year. You don't get to fly in and tell us how to run our lives. Christopher. Vanessa touched his arm, but he pulled away. It's done, Mom. She's gone. You need to accept that. I picked up the gift bag. The rattle shifted inside. I'll never accept it. I walked out, got in the rental car, drove until I saw a Marriott off the highway and checked in. The room had beige walls and a painting of a lighthouse. I sat on the bed in my coat, then I lay down. Then I cried until my ribs hurt. Somewhere in Connecticut, my granddaughter was with strangers. Nobody who loved her. Nobody who wanted her. I cried until my head throbbed. Then I stopped and stared at the ceiling. Christopher was right about the law. I had no standing, no rights. The agency wouldn't tell me anything. The courts wouldn't help me. But I had money. I had time. And I wasn't leaving Connecticut without her. I sat up and called my office manager in London. Petra, I need you to handle things remotely for a while. I'm staying in the States. How long? I don't know yet. I hung up and opened my laptop, searched for private investigators in Connecticut, found one with good reviews and sent a consultation request. Then I searched for sign language classes, American Sign Language, the language deaf people use here. I found a beginner course starting next week at the library on West Putnam Avenue, registered and paid online. It was past midnight when I finally changed clothes and brushed my teeth. Looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, 54 years old, jet-lagged, eyes swollen. I didn't look like someone about to search for a child for years. But I would. However long it took, however much it cost. I'd learned to sign so that when I found her, I could tell her in her own language that I'd never stopped looking. I turned off the light. The next morning I found an apartment on Riverside Avenue and signed a year lease, bought a map of Connecticut at a bookstore and pinned it to the bedroom wall, found pushpins at the office supply store. I stuck the first pin in Greenwich, where she was born, where they gave her away. Tomorrow I'd add more pins, wherever the investigator told me to look, however many it took. I was bringing my granddaughter home. The sign language class met Tuesday and Thursday evenings at the Greenwich Library. 6 months after I'd pinned that first marker on my wall, I sat in a circle with 12 other students trying to make my fingers spell the alphabet. My hands wouldn't cooperate. The teacher, a deaf woman named Carol, demonstrated again. Her fingers moved smooth and quick. Mine fumbled over the letter G, couldn't hold the shape for H. Practice, she signed. Every day. Muscle memory. I practiced in my car, in the grocery store line. Before bed, my hands cramped. I mixed up B and F constantly. The private investigator I'd hired quit after 8 months, said the trail was too cold, the records too sealed. I thanked him and hired another one. Kept going to class twice a week. After the first year, I could hold basic conversations. My grammar was wrong half the time, but I could ask questions, understand simple answers. I started attending deaf community events in Stanford, coffee meetups at a cafe on Summer Street, a book club that met monthly. People were polite, but cautious. A hearing woman showing up, asking questions about adoption, about deaf children. Some thought I was a social worker, others just kept their distance. But I kept showing up. Learned to respect when someone preferred to sign rather than speak. Learned not to touch people to get their attention. Learned that deaf culture had rules and history I needed to understand, not just a language to memorize. Eventually, a woman named Rita started talking to me. She taught at a deaf school in Hartford. Over coffee one afternoon, I told her about my granddaughter. They gave her up because she was deaf, I said, signing as I spoke. I've been looking ever since. Rita watched my hands, my face. How long? 2 years now. And you learned sign language for a baby you've never met. So I'd be ready when I found her. She nodded slowly. I'll ask around. Deaf schools, programs. Someone might remember something. But nobody did. Not that year. Not the next. I drove to every adoption agency within 200 miles, showed them the few details I had. A baby girl, born in Greenwich, given up at 5 days old, deaf. Most wouldn't talk to me. Privacy laws, sealed records. Some were kind about it. Others just pointed to the door. I visited orphanages in Connecticut, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, walked through common rooms looking at children's faces, wondering if any of them could be her, asked administrators about deaf girls, about records from years ago, hit dead ends everywhere. My second investigator found nothing. I hired a third. 5 years in, I'd been to over 200 facilities. I was 59. My sign language was fluent now, though fast signers still lost me sometimes. I knew people in the deaf community across 3 states. They knew my story. Some helped when they could. Others thought I was chasing something impossible. One afternoon I sat in my car outside an orphanage in Albany. Another no. Another dead end. I put my head on the steering wheel and cried. She'd be 5 years old now. Walking, talking in whatever language she'd learned. Maybe she'd been adopted by a good family. Maybe she was happy. Maybe I should stop. But I couldn't, not knowing where she was, who she was with, if anyone was signing to her, not knowing if she ever wondered about the grandmother who'd tried to find her. I wiped my face and started the car. The deaf community started calling me the grandmother who never stopped looking. Some said it with admiration. Others said it like I was obsessed. Maybe I was. 10 years after I'd stuck that first pin in my map, I had hundreds of pins. Red for agencies I'd contacted, blue for orphanages I'd visited, green for deaf schools I'd checked. My apartment walls were covered with maps and lists and notes. I was 62. My hair had gone mostly gray. My knees hurt from all the driving, all the walking through facilities, but I wasn't stopping. Then, on a Tuesday morning in March, my phone rang. Is this Nancy, the woman looking for her granddaughter? The caller was a social worker named Jennifer. She worked at an orphanage in Richmond, Virginia. Someone in the deaf community had mentioned my search. I think I might know who you're looking for, she said. There's a girl here. She's been with us since she was an infant. She's deaf. She's 12 now. Nobody's ever adopted her. My hands went numb. 12, the right age. What's her name? We call her Ellen, but that might not be her birth name. Her records are sparse. I was already grabbing my keys. I'm coming. I can be there in 6 hours. I'll be here until 5. I drove straight through. Stopped once for gas and coffee. My heart wouldn't slow down. This could be another dead end. I'd had calls like this before, leads that went nowhere. But something felt different. The orphanage sat on a quiet street in Richmond, a converted Victorian with a playground out back. Jennifer met me at the door. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 30, with tired eyes. She's outside, Jennifer said. Recreation time. I haven't told her you're here. Didn't want to get her hopes up. We walked through the building, past bedrooms and a cafeteria and a room full of donated toys, through a back door to the playground. There, Jennifer said, pointing. A girl sat alone on a bench near the fence, small for 12, dark hair pulled back, hunched shoulders. While other kids played basketball and climbed on equipment, she sat separate. She does that, Jennifer said quietly. Keeps to herself. She's been passed over so many times. Families come, they meet the kids, they choose someone else. After a while, I think she stopped hoping. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe right. Can I talk to her? Go ahead. I walked across the playground. The girl didn't look up until I was close. Then she glanced at me quickly and looked away, the way you do when you're used to being invisible. I sat on the bench and signed. Hello. My name is Nancy. Her head came up fast, shock in her eyes. Adults didn't usually sign here. She signed back slowly, uncertain. I'm Ellen. Her signing was basic, limited vocabulary, like someone who'd learned the minimum and never gotten to use it much. Can I sit with you for a minute? She nodded. We sat quiet for a moment. I watched her hands, her face. Then I noticed it, on her left shoulder, visible where her t-shirt collar had shifted. A small birthmark, shaped like a comma. Christopher had the same mark in the same place. My throat closed up. Ellen, can I ask you some questions about where you're from? She shrugged, signed. Don't know much. Been here always. Always? Since baby. I looked back at the building where Jennifer stood watching, then back at Ellen. I need to go talk to someone inside, but I'm coming right back. Will you wait here? She nodded, that same empty expression, like she'd learned not to expect anything. I walked back to Jennifer on shaking legs. I need to see her records, everything you have. Inside, Jennifer pulled a thin file. Born in Connecticut, placed at 4 days old through a private agency. Arrived at this facility at 6 months when the agency's temporary foster care fell through. Deaf, confirmed, no family contact, no adoption interest. The timeline fit, the location fit, the birthmark fit. I need a DNA test, I said. I think she's my granddaughter. Jennifer's eyes widened. You're serious? I've been looking for 12 years. I need to know for certain. It took 3 days to arrange through lawyers. 3 days where I drove back to Richmond every morning and sat with Ellen. We signed to each other. Simple conversations. She asked if I lived nearby. I told her I lived far away, but I'd traveled a long time to meet her. Why? She signed. Because I've been looking for someone, I signed back. Someone very important. The DNA results came back on a Friday. I was in my lawyer's office in Greenwich when he opened the envelope. 99.7% match, he said. She's your biological granddaughter. I put my face in my hands and sobbed. 12 years. 12 years of searching and driving and asking and hoping and nearly giving up, and I'd found her. The adoption process moved faster this time. I had money, a stable home, no red flags. Ellen's caseworker supported it. The orphanage supported it. Within 3 months, we were standing in a Virginia courthouse. The judge looked at Ellen. Do you understand what's happening today? Ellen signed and the interpreter spoke. Nancy's adopting me. I get to leave here. How do you feel about that? Ellen looked at me, then signed, good. The judge smiled and signed the papers. We flew to London the next week. Ellen sat by the window, watching clouds. I'd signed to her about the fresh start we'd have, about the flat in London, about how I'd promised I'd keep her safe, and I meant it. She nodded, then signed. Why did you look so long? I took her hand and signed back, because you're my granddaughter, and I never stop looking for family. She cried then. So did I. The plane lifted off and Ellen leaned against my shoulder. After 12 years in an orphanage, after a lifetime of being passed over, she was finally coming home. The London flat felt too big at first. Ellen stood in the doorway of her bedroom and wouldn't go in, just stared at the bed, the desk, the window overlooking the street. It's yours, I signed. Your room. She nodded but didn't move. That first month she barely looked at me, kept her eyes down, flinched when I moved too quickly. At dinner she ate fast like someone might take the plate away. In the mornings she'd be awake before me, sitting on her bed fully dressed, waiting. I'd hired a deaf consultant before we arrived. A woman named Miriam, who helped me retrofit the flat. Visual doorbell that flashed lights, smoke alarms that strobed, better lighting in every room so Ellen could see faces clearly. But the physical changes were easier than the rest of it. Ellen's sign language was basic, functional. The orphanage had taught her enough to get by, but not enough to really communicate. My signing was fluent after all those years of practice, but hers had gaps everywhere. We'd start a conversation, and she'd freeze, not knowing the signs she needed. I'd fingerspell words, she'd nod, but I could see the frustration. 3 weeks in, she signed thank you after dinner. Unprompted, just looked at me and signed it. I had to leave the room so she wouldn't see me cry. The second month, I enrolled her at a school for deaf students in North London. Therapy twice a week with a counselor who specialized in adoption trauma. Ellen went to both without complaint, came home tired and quiet. The other deaf students tried to include her. I'd watch during pickup, see them signing to her, inviting her to sit with them. She'd shake her head, sit alone. Her teacher pulled me aside one afternoon. She's struggling socially. The other students don't understand why she won't engage. She spent 12 years being rejected, I said. She doesn't trust it yet. The teacher nodded. We'll keep trying. I made mistakes, lots of them. I'd talk while signing, mixing English and sign language structure. One evening, Ellen's teacher called me. You need to sign pure American Sign Language at home, she said gently. Not Simcom, not English on your lips while you sign. Ellen needs full language immersion to catch up. I felt like I'd failed. I didn't know. Now you do. It's fixable. So I stopped speaking when I signed. It felt awkward at first, unnatural. But Ellen's comprehension improved within weeks. 6 months in, Ellen had a meltdown over math homework. She screamed, actually screamed out loud, which startled me because I'd never heard her voice before. Then she threw her textbook across the room, threw her pencil case, swept everything off the desk. I didn't know what to do, stood frozen in the doorway while she sobbed, loud and guttural. Then I sat on the floor and signed, I'm here, I'm not leaving, you're safe. She collapsed next to me. I held her while she cried. Her whole body shook. Later, her therapist explained it. Ellen's fear of abandonment ran deep. Any correction, any criticism, felt like rejection, like she was about to be sent away again. It's going to take time, the therapist said. Be patient, be consistent. By the end of that first year, things started shifting. Ellen made a friend. Another deaf girl named Sophie who wouldn't take no for an answer. Sophie just kept sitting with Ellen at lunch until Ellen finally started signing back. I learned visual parenting strategies. Get Ellen's attention before starting a conversation. Use clear facial expressions. Don't stand with my back to windows where light would shadow my face and make lip reading harder. Ellen's education had massive gaps. She could read at maybe a second grade level. Math was worse. The orphanage had given her minimal schooling. I hired a deaf tutor, a university student named James who used pure sign language. Ellen responded to him better than she'd responded to any hearing teacher. Slowly, she started catching up. The second year, Ellen joined the school's drama club. They performed stories in sign language, poetry, narratives. I went to every rehearsal, every performance, watched Ellen on stage using her hands to paint pictures in the air. I learned more about deaf culture from watching her. The beauty of it, the history, the community. This wasn't a disability. It was a language, a culture, a whole world I'd spent years learning about and was only now really seeing. One evening, Ellen asked me to tell her about the search, how I'd found her. We sat in the living room and I told her everything. The phone call from Christopher, the betrayal, the first pin on my map, 12 years of driving and asking and nearly giving up. Ellen cried, signed, You didn't give up on me. Never, I signed back. Not for one day. Why? Because you're my granddaughter. Because you mattered. Because they were wrong about you. She leaned against me. I thought something was wrong with me. All those years. Every family that came and left. I thought I was broken. You were never broken. By the third year, Ellen was thriving. 15 years old, and confident in ways I'd never imagined that scared 12-year-old could be. She performed in a regional sign language poetry competition. Didn't win, but didn't care. Just loved being on stage. I'd become part of a community of deaf parents in London. Went to meetups, advocacy events. Learned more every week about accessibility, about rights, about fighting systems that tried to diminish deaf people. One night, Ellen asked about her biological parents. We were making dinner together. She stopped chopping vegetables and signed, Why did they really give me up? I'd known this question would come eventually. I put down my knife. Because you're deaf, I signed honestly. They thought that made you damaged. They were wrong, but that's what they believed. Do you think they regret it? I don't know. I haven't spoken to them since. Ellen nodded slowly, then signed, Their loss. I have you. My throat closed up. I have you too. The fourth year arrived faster than I expected. Ellen turned 16. We talked about her future. University, maybe. She wanted to study deaf education, help other deaf kids who'd grown up feeling like she had. You'd be amazing at that, I signed. You think so? I know so. Then, on a Tuesday morning, an email arrived from an address I hadn't seen in 16 years. Christopher's name in my inbox made my stomach drop. I stared at it for a full minute before clicking. The subject line said, "Family." My hand shook on the mouse. Mom, I know we haven't spoken in 16 years. I know what happened was unforgivable. I've thought about it every day. I've thought about you every day. I don't expect you to respond to this, but I need to tell you something. Vanessa and I adopted a son. His name is Gabriel. He's 18 now. A good kid. Better than I deserve. He's starting college and he asked about you, asked if he had a grandmother. I told him yes, but that we'd had a falling out. He wants to meet you. I know I have no right to ask. I know I don't deserve your time or your forgiveness, but Gabriel does. He didn't do anything wrong. He deserves to know his grandmother if you're willing. If you want to meet him, I'll make it happen. Whatever you need. I'm sorry, Mom. For everything. Christopher. I read it 3 times. Then I closed the laptop and walked to the window. A grandson. Christopher had adopted a son. After throwing Ellen away because she was deaf, he'd gone and adopted a boy, kept him, raised him, for 18 years. The anger hit first, hot and sharp. They'd decided Ellen was too damaged to love, but another child was fine. A chosen child was acceptable? Then confusion. Why now? Why reach out after 16 years of silence? Then something else. Curiosity, maybe. This boy, Gabriel, 18 years old, he'd asked about me, wanted to meet me. I didn't know what to feel. Ellen came home from school an hour later, found me still standing at the window. She signed, "What's wrong?" I got my laptop and showed her the email, watched her face as she read. Her expression went carefully blank. When she finished, she looked up at me. "A grandson." "I didn't know," I signed. "He never told me." "They adopted him." "Yes." Ellen was quiet for a long moment, then signed. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to delete it and pretend I never saw it. Part of me keeps thinking about this boy who didn't do anything wrong. He's adopted," Ellen signed. "Like me." "I know. Do you want to meet him?" I sat down on the couch. "Maybe. Is that wrong?" Ellen sat beside me. "It's not wrong. He's your grandson. So are you." "I know, but he doesn't know I exist, and he's asking about you." She paused, signed carefully, "If you want to go, I'll come with you." I looked at her. "Ellen, I can't ask you to face them. You're not asking, I'm offering. You shouldn't have to do this alone. They're the people who gave you up. I know who they are, but I also know who I am now. I'm not that scared baby anymore. I'm not even that broken 12-year-old. I'm okay, and you might need backup." I almost smiled. Backup? Moral support. Whatever you want to call it. I'm coming. They can't know who you are. Not yet. Not until I figure out what they really want. Ellen nodded. "So I'm just your adopted daughter from the UK. Which is true." "Which is true," she agreed. "When do we leave?" I looked at the email again, at Christopher's words about mistakes and forgiveness and this grandson I'd never met. "Soon," I signed. "Let me respond first. Set something up." Over the next week, I exchanged emails with Christopher, arranged to come to Connecticut, told him I'd be staying at my estate there. He offered to have us stay with them. I declined, told him I was bringing my adopted daughter. He said that was fine, said he looked forward to meeting her. I didn't tell him anything else. Ellen and I packed our bags. She was calmer about it than I was. The night before our flight, we double-checked everything. Passports, documents, phone chargers. Ellen looked at me across the suitcases. Signed, "Are you scared?" "Terrified," I signed back. She smiled. Signed, "We've got this, Mom." Mom. She'd started calling me that over a year ago. Every time it made my chest tight. The next morning, we flew out of Heathrow. Ellen slept on the plane. I watched clouds and thought about what waited in Connecticut. About Christopher and Vanessa and this grandson I'd never met. About Ellen sitting beside me, strong and whole, heading back to face the people who'd decided she wasn't worth keeping. The plane landed at JFK, 7 hours later, we cleared customs, got our rental car, and drove north. Toward Greenwich. Toward whatever came next. The Connecticut estate sat on 3 acres in Greenwich, the same town where Christopher still lived. I'd bought it years ago, before everything fell apart, before I'd moved to London, before I'd spent 12 years searching. The house smelled like dust and closed windows when we arrived. Ellen helped me pull covers off furniture, open curtains, turn on lights. We spent the afternoon making the place livable again. That evening, I sent Christopher an email. Simple. Direct. I'm in Connecticut. When can we meet? His response came within an hour. Tomorrow? There's a restaurant on Greenwich Avenue. Neutral ground. Whatever makes you comfortable. I wrote back. Tomorrow at 6. I'm bringing Ellen. Looking forward to it, he replied. I wasn't. The next evening, Ellen and I arrived at the restaurant early. A quiet place with white tablecloths and soft lighting. I'd chosen it deliberately. Public, safe, easy to leave if I needed to. We sat near the window. Ellen watched the street, her hands folded in her lap. I could see the tension in her shoulders. You okay? I signed. She nodded. Just nervous. We can leave any time. I know. At 6:15 they walked in. Christopher first, then a woman who had to be Vanessa, then a tall young man behind them. I hadn't seen my son in 16 years. He looked older than 46, gray at the temples, lines around his eyes, thinner than I remembered. He wore a button-down shirt that had been expensive once, but was worn at the collar now. Vanessa looked diminished, still put together, but her clothes weren't designer anymore. Her jewelry was costume, not real. She held herself stiff, like she was performing composure. The young man behind them had to be Gabriel. Tall, dark hair, kind eyes. He looked curious and a little nervous. Christopher reached me first. Mom. I stood. Didn't hug him, just looked at him. Christopher, thank you for coming, for agreeing to this. He gestured to the table. Should we sit? We sat. Gabriel took the seat across from Ellen. Christopher made introductions. Mom, this is Gabriel. Gabriel, this is your grandmother. Gabriel smiled at me, warm and genuine. Hi, Grandma. I've wanted to meet you for a long time. His voice was kind, nothing like his parents' careful tones. Gabriel, I said. It's nice to meet you too. I turned to Ellen. This is Ellen, my adopted daughter from the UK. I found her in an orphanage when she was 12. She's deaf. Gabriel's face lit up immediately. He looked at Ellen and his hands came up, moving through signs. Hello, he signed. Nice to meet you. Ellen's eyes went wide. She signed back. Hi, you know sign language? A little. Gabriel signed and spoke at the same time. I'm really rusty, studied it in high school. Your signing is good, Ellen signed back. I watched Vanessa's face. A flicker of something passed across it. Discomfort, maybe, but no recognition. Christopher looked uncomfortable too, but for different reasons. Old guilt, perhaps. The waiter came. We ordered. Christopher tried to make conversation. So, Mom, how have you been? How's London? Fine. Still managing properties? Yes. He nodded. Tried again. I've regretted so much. What happened? How we left things. I think about it all the time. I looked at him directly. Do you? Yes. I was young. Stupid. I made terrible decisions. Vanessa touched his arm, but he kept going. I want to make it right, if that's even possible. I didn't respond. Turned my attention to Gabriel instead. Asked him about school, about his plans. He lit up talking about community college, not a prestigious university. He wanted to study something. He wasn't sure what yet. Maybe social work, maybe education. Why social work? I asked. He shrugged. I like helping people, and I think I understand what it's like to feel like you don't fit. Ellen was watching him carefully. I asked Christopher and Vanessa about their lives. They talked about downsizing and simpler living. When I asked direct questions, their answers stayed vague. Christopher mentioned they'd moved to a smaller place. Vanessa changed the subject when I asked why. Something felt off, but I couldn't identify what. Gabriel kept talking to Ellen, kept signing despite his rustiness, asked her real questions about what it was like being deaf, about the orphanage, about London. How long were you there? He asked. In the orphanage? Ellen's hands moved slowly. My whole childhood, from when I was a baby until Nancy found me. That must have been hard. It was. Gabriel nodded. Something in his expression said he understood more than most people would. When dinner ended, Christopher asked if we could meet again. Gabriel really wants to get to know you, he said, and I'd like to if you're willing. I looked at Gabriel, at his hopeful expression. We can meet again. Christopher's relief was visible. Maybe at your place next time? Less formal? Fine. We scheduled it for the following week. Walking to the car, Ellen signed, "He's nice." Gabriel? Yes, he's nothing like them. I noticed, he really knows sign language. Not well, but he tried. He did. The second meeting happened at my estate. Gabriel brought flowers. Real ones, not expensive. Grocery store bouquet. He gave them to both of us. For Grandma and Ellen, he said. Christopher and Vanessa made awkward small talk in the living room. I answered in monosyllables. Ellen sat quiet. After 20 minutes, Gabriel asked Ellen if she wanted to see the garden. She looked at me. I nodded. They went out to the terrace while I sat with Christopher and Vanessa in increasingly uncomfortable silence. Through the window I could see Gabriel and Ellen signing, laughing. Something was happening between them, a connection. Christopher followed my gaze. He's a good kid. He seems like it. We're proud of him. I didn't respond to that. The third meeting, Gabriel came alone, said his parents had something to do, but he wanted to visit if that was okay. It was more than okay. He and Ellen disappeared to the garden again. I watched from the kitchen window while I made tea. They sat on the stone bench, Gabriel's phone out, typing something, Ellen responding, both of them engrossed in conversation. When they came inside an hour later, both looked happy, comfortable. Gabriel stayed for dinner. We ordered pizza, sat around the kitchen table instead of the formal dining room. Gabriel asked me about finding Ellen, about the adoption process, about raising a deaf teenager. I answered honestly. He listened like he really cared. After he left, Ellen sat with me in the living room. He's different, she signed. Than his parents? Than anyone I've met. He gets it. The adoption thing. Feeling like you're supposed to be grateful all the time. Did he say that? Not exactly, but I can tell. The fourth meeting, Gabriel came over in the afternoon. Christopher and Vanessa had dropped him off, said they'd pick him up later. Gabriel and Ellen went straight to the garden. I gave them space, made lemonade and brought it out after a while. They were sitting close, Gabriel showing Ellen something on his phone. Signs he'd learned from someone. Ellen was correcting his hand shapes gently. They both laughed when he got one wrong. He tried again. Got it right. She applauded. I left the lemonade and went back inside. Watched from the window. The ease between them struck me, like they'd known each other for years instead of weeks. When Christopher came to pick Gabriel up that evening, Gabriel hugged me, actually hugged me. Thanks, Grandma, for letting me come over, for being cool about everything. You're welcome anytime. He meant it, so did I. After they left, I stood at the window. Ellen came up beside me. Something's wrong, she signed. What do you mean? With them, Christopher and Vanessa. The way they dress, the way they act. Gabriel, coming over alone. Something happened to them. I'd been thinking the same thing. You noticed too. Hard not to. But Gabriel doesn't seem like them at all. No, I agreed. He doesn't. Whatever Christopher and Vanessa were hiding, whatever had brought them back into my life after all these years, it is hard to believe that it is really about reconciliation. Let's see. But Gabriel was real. His kindness was real. His connection with Ellen was real. And that was worth something. Even if everything else was a lie. A month had passed since that first awkward dinner. Gabriel had been coming to the estate every few days, sometimes with Christopher and Vanessa, more often alone. The bond between him and Ellen had deepened into something that looked like real siblings. They signed to each other constantly, laughed at jokes I didn't always catch, sat close on the garden bench with their phones out, texting things they didn't want to say out loud. I watched it happen and felt grateful and worried, because eventually the truth would have to come out. It was a Thursday afternoon when everything changed. Gabriel had come over alone again, said his parents were busy. He and Ellen went straight to the garden like always. I stayed inside, made coffee, started answering emails in the study. An hour passed. Then 2. Usually they came in by then, hungry or thirsty or ready to include me in whatever conversation they'd been having. But the house stayed quiet. I looked out the window. They were still on the bench, but something was different. Gabriel's shoulders were hunched. Ellen's hands moved fast, urgent. Even from this distance, I could see the tension. I almost went out. Then Ellen looked toward the house, saw me at the window, shook her head slightly. Not yet. So I waited. Another 30 minutes. Then the back door opened. They came in together. Gabriel's eyes were red. Ellen's face was set in that careful blank expression she got when she was holding back emotions. They found me in the study, stood in the doorway. "We need to talk to you," Ellen signed. I closed my laptop. "Okay." They sat on the couch. I took the chair across from them. Gabriel couldn't look at me. Ellen reached over and squeezed his hand. "What happened?" I asked. Gabriel started. His voice came out rough. "I need to tell you something about why my parents really came back. Why they wanted me to meet you." I'd suspected this conversation was coming, but I stayed quiet. Let him talk. 6 months ago, my grandfather got arrested. My mom's dad. He'd been running some kind of investment scheme for years, like a Ponzi scheme. It collapsed. The government seized everything. He's in federal prison now. I processed that. Vanessa's family, old money, prestigious name, all gone. Gabriel continued. They lost everything. The house, the cars, the savings, all of it. My dad lost his job because he only had it through connections to my mom's family. Now those connections won't touch us. "Where are you living?" 2-bedroom apartment, other side of town. They're facing bankruptcy. They owe money everywhere. The pieces clicked into place. The worn clothes, the vague answers, the desperation under Christopher's apologetic performance. "And they came back to me for money," I said. Gabriel nodded, couldn't meet my eyes. "They coached me. Before we came to that first dinner, told me what to say, how to act. They said you'd help if I played up the grandson thing, that you'd feel guilty about missing out on my childhood and want to make it up to me." Ellen was watching me carefully, checking my reaction. "And you went along with it," I said to Gabriel. At first, he finally looked at me. I didn't know what else to do. They're my parents. I thought maybe they really did want family, that the money was secondary, but then I met you, and Ellen, and I realized this is what real family feels like. Not performance, not obligation, just connection. His voice cracked. "I feel sick about it. About lying to you. About being part of their scheme. You and Ellen are the first people who've ever made me feel like I could just be myself, and I'm here under false pretenses." "You're 18, I said. "You're here because they brought you. That's not your fault." But I kept coming back. I kept letting them think their plan was working. Ellen signed something to him. He nodded. "There's more," Gabriel said. "About them. About how they treated people. Ellen asked me to tell you something. About when I was younger." He took a breath. "When I was 16, I dated a girl, Hannah. She was deaf. I learned sign language for her. We were together for 6 months. My parents found out and lost their minds. I could see where this was going. My chest tightened. They said I couldn't date those people, that it would ruin my prospects, that deaf people had their own world and I didn't belong there. They made me break up with her. I was 17. I did what they told me." His hands clenched. "I've regretted it ever since." Ellen's face had gone very still. "That's why my signing is rusty," Gabriel continued. "I haven't used it since then. Couldn't stand thinking about Hannah, about what I did." The room went quiet. Then Ellen started signing. Gabriel watched her hands. "She's saying I need to tell you something now," he said. "About her." I looked at Ellen. "What is it?" She took a breath, then signed and spoke at the same time. "I'm not just some adopted girl Nancy found. I'm your parents' biological daughter." Gabriel's face went blank. "What? What?" Ellen kept going, her hands steady, even though I could see them trembling. "They gave me up for adoption when they found out I was deaf. I was less than 2 weeks old. Nancy was flying from London to meet me. By the time she got here, I was already gone. They'd given me to an adoption agency and wouldn't tell her where. Gabriel sat frozen. Nancy searched for me for 12 years, Ellen continued. Every orphanage, every agency, every deaf school. She finally found me when I was 12. I'd been in an orphanage my whole childhood. Nobody wanted to adopt a deaf kid. No, Gabriel said. That's not, they wouldn't, but he could hear the truth in his own voice. They would. They had. They gave you away because you were deaf, his voice came out flat. And then they adopted me, because I was perfect. Ellen nodded. Gabriel stood up, sat back down, put his head in his hands. The same people who made me break up with Hannah because she was deaf. They threw away their own baby for being deaf. Ellen signed. It's not your fault. I know. He looked up. His face was wet. But they kept me. They raised me. And you were alone in an orphanage for 12 years because they decided you weren't worth keeping. I couldn't speak. Watching Gabriel process this, watching him connect the pieces. He stood up again, started pacing. I can't go back there. I can't look at them knowing this, knowing what they did to Ellen, knowing they only brought me here to manipulate you. He stopped in the middle of the room, turned to face me. I'm 18. I can choose where I live. His voice shook. Can I stay here, with you and Ellen? Of course you can stay, Gabriel, I said. This is your home now. His face crumpled. Ellen stood up and hugged him. He held on to her like she was the only solid thing in the room. Over his shoulder, Ellen looked at me. What do we do now? Now, I said. We tell them the truth, all of it. Let them know we know about the money, about the scheme, about who Ellen really is. Gabriel pulled back. When? Soon. I'll invite them to dinner. Here, we'll end this. I should be the one to tell them, Gabriel said. About the money. About what I know. You don't have to. I do. I was part of it. Even if I didn't want to be. I need to own that. Ellen signed. We'll do it together. All three of us. I looked at them. My 2 grandchildren. One I'd searched for. One I'd just found. Both choosing truth over comfort. Both choosing this makeshift family over the one that had used them. Together, I agreed. Gabriel sat back down. Ellen sat beside him. I moved to the couch and sat on Ellen's other side. We stayed like that for a long time. The 3 of us, processing, preparing for what came next. Outside, the sun started setting. The garden filled with shadow. Inside, we held each other, a grandmother and 2 grandchildren, ready to face the people who'd hurt us. Ready to end this. 3 days after Gabriel and Ellen told me everything, I sent the invitation. Christopher, Vanessa, please come to dinner at my estate this Saturday at 7. There's something we need to discuss. Christopher's response came within the hour. We'd love to. Thank you, Mom. See you then. I could read the hope in those words. The assumption that I was finally ready to help them, that their plan had worked. Saturday arrived cold and clear. Gabriel had been staying in one of the guest rooms since Thursday, hadn't gone back to his parents' apartment. They'd called twice. He'd let it go to voicemail. That afternoon, the 3 of us prepared, set the dining room table with the good china, made a roast with vegetables, opened a decent bottle of wine to let it breathe. Gabriel was quiet, kept checking his phone, setting it down, picking it up again. You don't have to do this, I said. Ellen and I can handle it. No, he put the phone in his pocket. I need to. I was part of their plan. I need to own that. Ellen touched his arm. Signed. We're with you. He nodded, tried to smile. At 7 exactly, the doorbell rang. I answered it. Christopher and Vanessa stood on the porch. They'd dressed up. Christopher in a suit that used to fit better. Vanessa in a dress that had been expensive once. She held a bottle of wine. Nancy, Vanessa smiled. Too bright. We brought wine for tonight. Come in, I said. They followed me to the dining room. Christopher's eyes went to Gabriel, who sat at the table next to Ellen. Gabriel, I thought you'd be home by now. Change of plans, Gabriel said. We sat. I served the roast, poured wine, made small talk while they settled in. Christopher tried too hard to fill the silence, asked Gabriel about college plans, complimented the house. Vanessa added agreement to everything he said. Ellen sat quiet. I could see her hands in her lap, clenched tight. We ate. I let them relax, let them think this was going the way they'd planned. Dessert came out. Apple pie, coffee. Vanessa set down her fork and glanced at Christopher. Nancy, she said, we wanted to talk to you about something important. Before you continue, I said, I have something to tell you both. I stood, set down my napkin. Gabriel and Ellen sat straighter. This is Ellen, but I haven't been entirely truthful about who she is. Christopher's face shifted to confusion. Vanessa went still. Ellen isn't just an adopted daughter I found 4 years ago. My voice came out steady, cold. She was in that Virginia orphanage for 12 years before I found her, since she was less than 2 weeks old. Vanessa's hand started shaking. Her fork clattered against the plate. Given up for adoption by parents who didn't want a deaf baby, who thought she was damaged, who wouldn't even tell the grandmother where she was. Christopher's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. I searched for her for 12 years, I continued. Every orphanage, every adoption agency, every deaf school and program across 6 states. I learned sign language so that when I finally found her, I could communicate with my granddaughter in her own language. Nancy, Vanessa's voice came out thin. That's not what this is. That's not. Her birthmark matched Christopher's. Same place, same shape. Her background matched the timeline. The DNA test confirmed it with 99.7% certainty. I looked at Christopher. This is your daughter, the granddaughter you threw away. Christopher put down his fork. His face had gone gray. You cut me off when I begged you to reconsider, I said. You gave her away at less than 2 weeks old and wouldn't tell me where. I arrived from London to meet her, and she was already gone. Vanessa started crying. Not sad tears, panic tears. We didn't know, she said. We were young. We didn't know how to handle a deaf child. You were 28 and 30, I said. You had money, resources, family. You didn't want her. There's a difference. Gabriel stood up. And I know why you're really here. Not for family, not for reconciliation, for money. Christopher turned to him. Son, that's not true. I told them everything, Gabriel said. His voice shook but held steady. Grandfather's Ponzi scheme, the bankruptcy, how you coached me before that first dinner, how you told me to play up the grandson angle because Grandma would feel guilty and help. Christopher's mouth opened. Nothing came out. I heard you practicing, Gabriel continued. What you'd say when you finally asked her for money, how you'd frame it, what words to use. Vanessa was sobbing now. We had no choice. We lost everything. Your grandfather destroyed us. You had choices, I said. You made them. You gave away an infant because she was deaf, because your family cared more about appearances than a baby's life. Ellen stood, signed and spoke at the same time. I spent 12 years in that orphanage. 12 years watching families come and leave without me. 12 years thinking something was wrong with me, that I was the problem. Christopher looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. I saw the recognition hit. The birthmark, the age, the timeline. Ellen, he said. You don't get to say my name, she signed. You gave up that right when you gave me away. Gabriel stepped closer to Ellen. You forced me to break up with Hannah when I was 17. Said dating deaf people would ruin my prospects, called them those people. The whole time, you'd thrown away your own baby for being deaf. That was different, Vanessa said. How? Gabriel's voice rose. How was it different? No answer. Christopher tried one more time. Mom, please, we made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But we're still family. No, I said. You made your choice when you gave away your daughter. I made mine when I spent 12 years searching for her, and Gabriel has made his. Gabriel looked at his parents. I know you raised me. I know you gave me a home. But what you did to Ellen, I can't look past that. I'm staying with them. Gabriel. Vanessa stood. You can't just abandon us. We raised you. We're your parents. Ellen needed parents and you threw her away, Gabriel said. His voice broke. I need a real family now. I pointed to the door. Leave my home. Don't contact us again. You lost your children. Both of them. That's the consequence of your choices. Christopher stood slowly. Vanessa was crying too hard to speak. He took her arm. Mom, he said one last time. Goodbye, Christopher. They walked out. I heard the front door open and close, then car doors, engine starting, tires crunching on gravel. Then silence. Gabriel sat down hard, put his face in his hands, his shoulders shook. Ellen moved to him, put her arms around him. I sat on his other side, held them both. "It's over," I said. Gabriel cried. Relief and grief mixed together. Ellen cried too, silent tears down her face. We stayed like that until the candles burned low and the coffee went cold. Then we cleaned up together, washed dishes, put away leftovers, normal tasks that felt grounding after everything. Gabriel slept in the guest room that night, Ellen in hers. I lay awake thinking about Christopher, about the son I'd raised and the man he'd become, about the daughter he'd thrown away, and the grandson who'd chosen truth over comfort. In the morning, we'd figure out next steps, planning our return to London, enrolling Gabriel in university there, getting him a passport if he needed one. But that night, we just existed. 3 people who'd found each other, who'd chosen each other, who'd become family not through blood, but through dedication and love. 3 months later, we were back in London. Ellen returned to her deaf school for her final years. Gabriel enrolled at University College London studying social work. The flat was crowded with 3 of us, but it worked. Gabriel's sign language improved daily. Ellen helped him practice, corrected his grammar, taught him new signs. One morning, I came into the kitchen to find them already there. Ellen setting the table, Gabriel making toast. Easy routine we'd fallen into. "Hannah texted last night," Gabriel said. Ellen looked up, signed. "What did she say?" "That she got my apology, that she appreciated it." He smiled slightly. "We're going to keep talking, see where it goes. She's still in Connecticut, so it's complicated, but it's something." Ellen grinned, signed something that made him laugh, and signed back. "I made coffee. Watch them, my grandchildren." "What are you thinking about?" Ellen signed to me. I signed back. "How lucky I am. How worth it the search was." Gabriel came over, hugged me. "We're the lucky ones, Grandma." Ellen joined us, the 3 of us standing in the kitchen in our pajamas with morning light coming through the windows. We'd started as broken pieces, a grandmother searching, a girl abandoned, a boy used. Now we were whole, not perfect, not without complications, but family, real family, and that was everything. So, that's my story. I'd love to hear what you think. Did Christopher and Vanessa deserve a second chance, or did I make the right call? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe for more stories like mine.